With all of that being said, guys, we are going to be starting our watch party for the Black Beauty Takeover. Hello, Facebook. If you're catching the replay, type in replay in the chat. Type in replay in the chat. The party is happening over on Facebook. So if you go to my link in my bio, you will be able to join us for the watch party either on the Retail Genius page or in our Power Circle group. All right. See you guys there. Hello, Facebook. Welcome to the virtual room. As you guys are coming on in, type in replay. If you're catching the replay, type in replay in the chat. And also, please let me know, as usual, where you are logging in from. Let me know your city, rep your city in the chat, rep your city in the chat. Okay. So we are wrapping up the Black Beauty Takeover. We are at episode 8. So it's the second to last episode. And this is all about creating a beauty brand for your business. I love the idea of creating a beauty brand for beauty supply store owners because it is an additional revenue source for your business, for your store. And so I love, love, love the idea of creating a private label brand or black label brand, however you guys want to call it, that is going to be your own. And I talk a lot about this, and so I'm not going to say too much, but tonight's episode is going to be featuring my good sis, Melody Bockelman. And she is the owner of Private Label Insider. She has helped hundreds of people create their own brands that you see in Target, brands that you see in Ulta, brands that you see in Sephora. My good sis was behind that. She was the brains behind that. Okay. And so we had the honor of interviewing her for this segment on creating your own black owned beauty brand and really what's involved. And so I'm really, really excited to have you guys see this episode tonight. Before we get into all of that, y'all, we are down to the last day for you guys to get your tickets for the Beauty Supply Bootcamp weekend that is happening next month. We are literally down to the last day. So if you have not gotten your ticket, today's the day to decide, right? It's time to decide if you're going to be in or out. We have had some of our speakers come on and do lives just to share a little bit of overview on what they're going to be talking about during the boot camp weekend. I have called on some amazing industry experts, not just myself, but some bosses in the field, industry experts in their spaces of expertise. So we have someone talking on funding, guys. For the first time, we have someone talking on funding and business credit. We have someone talking about grants, right? So a good cornerstone of this weekend is going to be getting y'all to the money, getting y'all to get this bag so that we can open nice size beauty supply stores that can compete with the big boys. So I wanted to really focus a lot on funding. And so I have a lot of experts coming out to share to share with you guys how to get this funding as someone who has who has never been in business. So you don't have that business credit, you don't have that history. We're going to show you guys how to get the money. I am going to be sharing some behind the scenes training for our VIP. So if you're a VIP or if you are interested in like doing some hands-on training, you want to upgrade to the VIP because our VIP is going to be at one of our stores out in Grayson, Georgia. Our good sis, Quality Beauty Supply, has lent us her store once again for this training. And so we're going to have that set up for you guys. We're going to be talking about business plan and creating that business plan that you can go ahead and take to London so you can get six-figure credit. We're going to have a whole discussion on that. We're going to have tons of sessions on how to scale and grow your beauty supply store. So I have my good sis, Alyssa Swans, coming out, and she's going to be talking about automations and marketing and how just by creating certain automations within your business, you can 2x your income, right? You can literally double your income. I'm personally going to be teaching you guys my 7-step conversion method. Now, this method by itself can 10x your revenue, right? If you implement all the things that I teach you. Key word, guys. I'm always saying I could teach you this stuff, but you actually have to implement it. Okay. But these are the things that we are going to be teaching this weekend. So if you have a store and you want your sales to grow, you definitely need to come this weekend. If you are someone who is on the fence on whether or not you want to get into beauty supply, you're still not convinced, you're not sure, You want to come to this weekend so you can be sure, so you can get your questions answered. And if you are someone who is sure and just needs the blueprint and the steps on what to do next, you definitely need to show up to this weekend, because we're going to be doing a lot of work in person, hands-on, live, real time. Okay, so this is a weekend for you guys. All right. So I'm going to get into our watch party tonight. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see real quick. Let me do that.
Now you're putting chemicals in it?
We decided to create a show that would give consumers that behind the scenes of what Black-owned beauty supply store owners go through, what Black-owned brands, Black-owned salons go through, to have a conversation with experts in the field, helping Black entrepreneurs break into the beauty supply industry. Let's jump into the world of Black beauty. My name is Janice Frederick Spell. I am your host, and I'm here with a special guest, Melody Bockelman. So before we get started and jump into the world of Black brands, I want you to tell the viewers who you are and your company.
Sure. So my name is Melody Bockelman. I am the founder of Trendset. I have been in the beauty industry since 2004 and built over 5,000 beauty brands.
Wow.
Yeah.
5,000.
5,000. In every category: skincare, hair care, makeup, feminine care, supplements, foot order products, everything. We've done everything that's health and beauty.
So tell the viewers, if they're not aware, like, what exactly do you do with these brands? How do you help?
So we start from concept to launch, and we help people who have an idea of a brand bring it to market. So one of our first clients was Cora Tampons. She was not a beauty professional. She had no idea how to actually make a tampon and came to us, and we helped her with the idea to all the way she got to Target.
Wow. So you help a brand from inception all the way to getting on the shelves of Target. That is amazing. So I would love for you to start off with that. If you could talk a little bit about what that journey or that life cycle looks like when someone has an idea for a brand or a product, to get it all the way to, like, let's say a Target.
Sure. So I think, a lot of people have these great ideas, and usually it starts with like solving their own problems or solving the world's problems. So in Cora Tampon's case, she wanted to stop the girls from dropping out of school. So when they would start their period, they would drop out, and she just want to fix that problem. So she came to me with like, how do I first actually get a tampon into the marketplace? And those things are, class 2 medical devices. So there's a lot of legal issues that we kind of help them through the process. So we work through fleshing out the ideas, like, is the idea the right time? Is the idea feasible? How much money will you need for this idea? And then we take it all the way from there to working with manufacturers, to then the branding product of it, and then the launch.
Wow. So we have seen a lot of amazing brands emerge over the past 10 years, like Superset and her brand, Monique and her brand, Mayel Organics. So talk to us about how our Black-owned brands could grow and grow fast.
Well, it's kind of tough, because one disadvantage that we have is that a lot of us are first-time business owners, and so we don't understand the world of business. So one of the things that a lot of brand owners need to understand is they need to get more education on actually how to run a business, how to create the products. So not only are they the chemists oftentimes making it in their kitchen or formulating, but then they actually have to learn how to run this business, understand profit margins. So getting education first is like the number one step. And then the other piece is financing. We are so underfinanced when we start brands, whereas, our counterparts can hire a 6-figure, branding agency, and we're coming out just going to Canva or, somebody on Fiverr to do a logo. And so I think they need to, really kind of get their finances in orders to be able to invest in building a brand, because it's not, we hear these kitchen sink stories, but the reality is you've got to have money, and that'll help you grow faster. But on the same hand to that, a day one brand or somebody that's been running a brand for less than 3 years, if I was to hand them a check for $5 million, they probably wouldn't even know how to do.
Right.
Yeah. So getting, there's timing of it as well. There's benefit of bootstrapping because you learn so much from the experience. Yeah. But then there comes a point when you're like, I've got it. Now I need to grow faster. And money is that second piece that they need, that investment to really grow faster. And then the third part of it, and this is something like you mentioned, Supacent, and we all know her life.
Right.
We know her babies. We know her boyfriends. We know her surgeon. She is out there making herself famous by sharing and being authentic and going live every day. And I think a lot of brand owners, and if they want to go faster, they need to, start using that idea of fame.
Right. And so I hear like documenting the process, and I feel like a lot of people were so afraid to document our like struggles and the humble beginnings because we just want to show that we're here in Target and we're doing all of these shipments and the big boxes and that whole picture that we see on Instagram. So I love that you said that. So for people watching, and you talked about the money being one of the biggest things, what would you suggest someone start out with?
I mean, honestly, it's getting your personal credit in order. And a lot of that is just because, while you're a business and your business may have revenue, they're still going to look at your history. So getting your personal credit in order. One of my rules with my clients is don't quit your day job. You absolutely need that day job to fund the rest of your life. So if you think about your business as a baby, you wouldn't put your mortgage on your baby.
Right.
So don't do it to your business. So just making sure that they, get their finances in order personally, and then start understanding business credit and allowing their business to grow. One of the things I've noticed is it takes brands about 3 years before they really start getting the rhythm of making, high 6 figures, early 7 figures before they're ready to scale.
So then someone watching right now in their dream, like they may be operating outside of their online website and their dream is to get into Target. What would you say to that person who is still in a place where they're doing most of their orders online?
I mean, so if you're doing most of your orders online, that's great because your online community is going to support your retail sales. So actually, that's a great way to go is direct to consumer first, online sales, and then going into Target and then going into a retailer. You'll have experience with, order fulfillment. You'll understand how to handle customer service issues. Like, it's a great place to start. Not a lot of brands actually go straight to Target first. They just don't have enough business experience, and Target wouldn't really want to work with them.
Right. And one thing that I found with my own beauty supply store is that a lot of the indie brands got, their start in the smaller, Black-owned beauty supply stores, and that's how they were able to get the recognition of a Target or a major distributor. Yeah. So if you could speak to that kind of process a little bit of like maybe reaching out to local beauty supply stores or local retailers before you actually make that jump into like a Target.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that as I'm looking at the brands kind of behind you, and I'm thinking about, so many of these brands started at our local beauty supply stores.
Right, exactly.
It was training wheels, basically, right?
Absolutely.
And what they learned a lot is that their branding wasn't up to par.
Yes.
You probably saw that a lot. Packaging was terrible. It didn't reflect light enough. People didn't even see their brands. Oftentimes, it got lost in the shelves. So starting at a beauty supply store, your local getting your training wheels is a great way. Beauty supply owners are usually single store owners.
Right.
They want to work with you.
Right.
So don't be afraid to start that conversation, even if you feel like you're not ready, because that's how you get ready.
Absolutely. So what about Amazon as a potential route to bigger shelf space? What do you think about a potential brand owner going into Amazon?
So pre-COVID, Amazon was looked down upon from beauty brands. Like, you would never find beauty brands on Amazon. It was an either or. You're going to Ulta or you're going to Amazon. But with COVID, what we saw is that we all shifted our habits.
Right.
And we're buying. So I love Amazon for beauty brands. Majority, I think they had like a 40% increase in beauty from small brands throughout the pandemic. So Amazon is like one of the sales channels you absolutely need to be on.
Right, that's interesting because I feel like I would question a product on Amazon, just not knowing if it is the real thing. Are you finding that at all with any of your brands that you work with?
Well, I would say the quality of the brands have improved. So it used to be like they would, basically white label or private label. Mm-hmm. We called them Me Too products. There were a million vitamin C's on there that you were wondering who actually made this. But because of the pandemic and you couldn't go into stores, now your Drunk Elephants are on there, your Indie Lee's, your brands are on there that you recognize. And so it's really more convenience. And also, Amazon has like increased their standards of what they're allowing into their beauty category as well.
So other than, let's say, Amazon and other small Black-owned beauty supply stores, what are other places that brands could potentially go to scale?
Yeah, so there's a lot of emerging like retailers that are supporting Black and brown brands. 13 Loon is up and coming. They've just taken over the Sephora stores and JCPenney's. I have a client that's going into all 600 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, life-changing for her. And so 13 Loon is one, Brown Girl Co-op is another, Black and Green is another. There's a lot of little smaller niche, Inside Out Market is another. There's a lot of smaller niche retailers that are really trying to, cater to the needs of the Black and brown community.
And so what are some of the Black-owned brands right now that are doing like amazing things, amazing numbers?
Yeah, I mean, so I like innovation, and I think a lot of times, our hair market is saturated in a lot of ways, but I love innovation, and one of the things that we dropped the ball in skincare is sunscreen for us. So you see, Black Girl Sunscreen, she was the first one that opened up that category, went into Target, and then like Absolute Joy now has a color cosmetic with sunscreen in it to color match. It's something you just never see in our industry. And she's not a Fenty, she's a, small independent brand owner. So those two brands are always the ones that stick out in my head. And then of course, the curl mixes, the forcing only, many ethnicities, people that are really serving niche markets are the ones that I'm kind of obsessed with right now.
So for someone who's watching right now who wants to actually get into like the natural hair care and is kind of saturated, what ways would you suggest for them to be like innovative, like with their brands?
I think the biggest innovation is the market is saturated, and we all have a million products on our shelves or in our bathrooms, and they're a lot of money. They're not cheap. So I think being absolutely clear for your consumer of like, no, this product is absolutely for you, and not being afraid to niche down and say, like Mixed Chicks did, this is for mixed hair textures. This is for whatever hair texture, so that the consumer doesn't feel like they're wasting their money and it's just a guess.
Right.
Because that's what they feel. They feel like they're guessing. And it's stressful. It's stressful for, every Sunday, if you have multiple children, you have to do hair. You don't know who's going to work, and every kid has a different hair texture. So a brand, especially in the hair space, as a mature space, needs to be willing to take a stand and say, this is for me. This is for you as the customer. I made this just for you. But a lot of times we're afraid. So we get creative with the packaging, we get creative with the naming, but we still don't solve that customer's problem.
Wow. That's interesting that you say that. And I think like we can dig a little bit deeper with the packaging. How do you feel like brands could do a better job outside of just directly talking to the consumer when it comes to packaging? Like, what do you think that they could do better?
So I have a Target test. This is my Target test. When you're going to Target and you have kids and they're with you, if I have to turn my head like this to read your packaging, I'm not going to buy it. Right. And so being really clear of your experience that your customer is going to have looking at your packaging, the font size, the colors, the vertical, the way that the print is it, which way is it facing? Is it horizontal or is it vertical? Like just being aware of what your customer is going to experience. Right. More so than if they see your logo or your font or your name. Who cares about your font and your name? They want to make sure that product's for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if I have a product and I'm starting out in my kitchen like most brands do, what is the typical life cycle for me starting in my kitchen to becoming this big household name?
So if you're someone that's making a product at home, it's because you've created it, you formulated it, the first thing you've got to do is get that product shelf stable. So if you see any separation or mold growing, you've got to get with a formulating chemist to make sure that they are making sure it's stable, not going to hurt anybody. So step one. Step two then is you've got to make a decision. Once you get out of the formulating piece of it, then you got to decide, am I going to actually self-manufacture or am I going to find a contract manufacturer? Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it is a decision that has to be made because the investment of self-manufacturing going from like your KitchenAid to like a big 30-gallon, 200-gallon equipment requires a whole different setup. And a lot of brands, and you guys would be really surprised to know this, but a lot of brands choose to self-manufacture. So they'll make these 30-gallon, 200-gallon containers and they keep their manufacturing costs low. And we have brands that are doing $3 to $5 million that are making their products that have gone from their kitchen to a warehouse. Their own warehouse.
So talk a little bit more about that process for people who are completely unfamiliar with, self-manufacturing, getting a chemist. Like, what does that look like? Like, dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, it sounds scary, right? It's like, oh my God, it's so
it sounds like money to me.
It is money. Yeah. It is money, but the business funds itself in a lot of ways because once you start making 5 gallons and 10 gallons, you naturally start to increase, and you get better as someone that's making it. You're understanding how to perfect that process. So you can actually find cosmetic chemists for cheap. Like
Okay.
there's cosmetic chemist societies out here that will look at your formula for $150.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it's actually not as expensive as it seems. The bigger investment then is the equipment that you have to buy, leasing the
Okay.
space, those kind of things. But by the time you're ready for that, you're already doing mid 6 figures, 7 figures. So your business will sustain that. The cycle isn't we go from where I made a small batch, now I've got to go to this large batch. It's like, no, we grow into it.
Okay, so once someone grows into like larger batches, what does it look like for them to go from the larger batches to like a Target where you're in hundreds of stores?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, at that point, you're in a good position because your costs are lower, you're controlling your costs, and you're able to scale and make inventory kind of on demand. So you're not stocking a lot of finished goods. So you're actually really in a good position to go to Target, to go to Walmart or Amazon or anywhere. You'll be fine. You'll be compliant by that time. It's not. It seems intimidating, but the retailers don't require any outside testing really, other than to make sure that you provide, some industry safety records that they need.
And that's good that you brought that up, because I think most consumers believe that there is a lot of regulations and they have to go through all this testing, but that is not the case.
No, the U.S. has terrible regulations for cosmetics.
Wow.
Like, the EU, Canada, they're amazing, but the U.S. products are not regulated. The FDA
They're not regulated.
Not at all. It's slightly regulated in that the FDA approves ingredients. They're called GRAS, ingredients recognized as safe by the FDA and percentages that you put in there. But the FDA doesn't have the time to actually review every brand's formulation. So your formula, your favorite brands, has never been inspected by the FDA. Unless there's a problem. That's when the FDA gets involved.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know.
Yes. Yeah. So there's things that brand owners should be doing. They should be doing the microbe testing. They should be doing,
on their own, with
just,
their own funds.
Yes. Yeah. Just as a safety for their own brand owners, because you're selling consumer goods.
Yep.
You want to make sure that you're not selling something that's going to make somebody's hair fall out or their lashes fall out, God forbid. So yeah, making sure that you're following, good GMP standard manufacturing. It's a learning curve, but they'll learn those things.
So for someone watching that is a new brand and they want to get into like the natural hair care industry, and we all know it's kind of saturated, or for maybe a brand owner who's been here for a while, like what do you do when a market matures? Like what is the next step?
Yeah.
Is there even room for new brands to even enter this market?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The hair brand has matured. Natural hair movement has shifted and changed, and people are going back to relaxers. And if they're not doing relaxers, they're doing locks. And so is there room for you? Yes, absolutely. There's room for you, because what I always tell brands is that your background, your history, the way you bring a brand to market is going to be totally different than the way I do it or the way you would do it.
Right.
So there's room for you, but you got to get really crystal clear on the problem that you're solving and the people that you're serving. And so many people miss that step. They are not focused on their customers. So before, if I was a new brand and I wanted to go into hair, I wouldn't bring out a hair oil generic to help with growth. I wouldn't. There's a million of them. But would I bring out a hair oil for people that wear locks? Absolutely. It's specific. It solves a problem. It's the people that we serve. So you've got to be really clear when you're hopping in that you're not just going to be another Me Too brand.
Right. And so what about the brands who are already here and they're realizing that, like, man, it's kind of saturated. Like, how do I reinvent myself?
Right.
What would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a great. And the other thing is, like, so let's say you're already here and you're selling. What you don't want to do is drop your prices and compete on price, right? Because that's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
But what you would want to do is ask your amazing, beautiful customers that support you, what do they need?
Yes.
What do you need? What are you doing on Sundays? Let's go through your wash routine, y'all. Come on, I want to see what you're doing. Invite them over, do a focus group, have a conversation, have lots of conversations with them.
That's good.
And then figure out how you can actually shift to meet their needs.
So what is one of the biggest misconceptions that consumers may have about the brands that they're currently supporting?
I think the biggest thing that consumers get wrong is that they assume that a brand is actually a small-owned Black brand just because it's in the ethnicity aisle or the textured aisle, but it may not actually be Black-owned. It may be big corporation-owned, or it may be owned by someone other than us. A lot of times a brand, as they mature, they either sell, or there's already, corporation-owned L'Oreal's, P&G's that are just in our space on the shelves selling to us with our picture on it, but they don't actually, it's not Black-owned. So being conscious, and maybe you pay a little bit more to support that small black owned brand, but the dollar goes a lot further.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Melody, so much for coming on and sharing your expertise. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay, so what did y'all think? What did y'all think about that episode? If you guys are still watching me on Instagram, type in the chat what you guys thought about that episode. I feel like I've seen some comments here. So my girl Toya says, absolutely, Joy is amazing. Thank you, good sis. What did you guys think? Drop me some fire emojis if you enjoyed it. Drop me some fire emojis if you enjoyed that episode. If you want to watch the replay, or not watch the replay, but watch it on your own, you can go to theconvo.tv. Theconvo.tv. It's free for you guys to watch. Go ahead to theconvo.tv. So a few things that I took note of that I really, really enjoyed about this conversation. One was how Melody suggested that we get into, for those who are interested in creating a brand, to start small and niche down, right? So that's the same thing I'll tell y'all when we start a beauty supply store. Like, when you start, like, it's really expensive to try to be everything to everyone, right? I always say that it's super expensive to try to be everything to everyone. And so if you can start with like a niche type of store, this is exactly what I did. I didn't have the space nor the money to have or carry everything in my beauty supply store. So we were super niche. And so when she mentioned that, I felt like that was golden. I felt like that was golden. The other thing that she mentioned was the fact that the FDA does not regulate these brands that we know, love, and trust, right? I was so shocked when she said that. But when you think about it, the FDA doesn't have the time to regulate all of these brands. And so you have to do your own due diligence when it comes to your formulas. If you're going to be creating some type of skincare brand or hair, a hair product, you will have to do that on your own. And for me, someone who has literally been in beauty for over a decade, for me to not know that, I was actually shocked. I was actually shocked with that information, right? And I feel like there was another episode where we kind of discussed how when a lot of these brands like sell, a lot of people feel like they're going to change their formulas, right? This is actually one of the first episodes, was big brands like selling out and how there's just shift in the support when a black owned brand does sell to some major company, right? So that was really, really interesting. That was really interesting. But it does speak volumes too. And someone on Instagram just mentioned cancer and fibroids and things of that nature. I I could see why these conversations are really important when we talk about the things that we were putting in our bodies, on our hair, right? So I thought that was a really good point. Um, yes, she says that was my aha moment. Yeah, that was deep. Um, and the other thing that she mentioned when she was talking about scaling a brand was that a lot of the black brands don't know how to do business well. Like, we're not educated enough, right? We don't go to enough conferences. We don't take the courses. We don't have mentors and coaches in these areas, right? That's another thing that she mentioned that prevents brands from actually scaling up. It's just not having the education on business just in general. I thought that was pretty profound because it speaks to, like, if we had more people who were proficient in business, how far would we go, right? How far would you go? How far would I go, right? I liked that she mentioned that as well. in tonight's episode. So, any other gems, guys? Any other gems? Drop it in the chat, guys. Drop it in the chat. And if you are watching the replay, I would love to know what your aha moment was, or a gem that you appreciated from Miss Melody tonight. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to wrap it up here. We're at the 30-minute mark. Again, the convo.tv for you guys to rewatch all of these episodes. It is the convo.tv for you guys to rewatch all of these episodes. Our last episode is happening next week. Our last episode is happening next week. So we are wrapping up this season of the Black Beauty Takeover, which again, I'm super excited for this, guys. This was a dream come true for me. And I hope you guys are enjoying these episodes. And if you are, when you go to the convo.tv, if there's any opportunity for you to make any comments or anything like that, I would love for y'all to do that to support your girl. I appreciate that with my whole heart. All right. So I will see you guys on our next episode. Again, this is going to be going down next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Have a good night.